The thing of having Max's face mostly covered up for the first 40 minutes or so, plus making him almost a secondary character to Furiosa, struck me as an obvious lack of confidence from the filmmakers that audiences were going to accept Hardy in the role. In fact, it would have been pretty easy to tell the same story and not make it a Mad Max movie. You could remove the Max character from it or replace him with somebody else with a different name and have a decent standalone movie. The stuff about Max's flashbacks of his dead family also didn't work for me at all. It's too much like a horror movie cliche, and it's something that wasn't present in the previous Max films. It could have been done with a bit more artistry and subtlety, and it's not convincing because the flashbacks occur at the most inappropriate times, such as in the middle of a battle scene, as if he's turned into some sort of schizophrenic. Yet he's able to think straight on just about every other issue and situation that he encounters. It also mismatches the fact that he seems unaffected both physically and mentally by his prolonged captivity and enslavement at the beginning of the movie. Pretty much anyone would be traumatized by that. Max's problem in the early films was that the loss of his family had brought him to believe that it's better to put up the emotional barriers and live a life of solitude rather than risk the pain of connecting with new people who he could lose again. So, in Mad Max 2, he sees Papagallo killed, a warning of the fate that might be in store for him if he decides to lead the same clan. And he sees a woman killed who had taken a liking to him, but by keeping her at arm's length, he avoided a repetition of his past grief concerning his wife. That stuff really worked for the Max character because it fed into his decision to go it alone, again at the end of the movie. And Max 2 had a marvellously poetic and quite emotional opening that quickly established the changes in Max's character and situation since the end of the first movie, but it did it in a way that didn't feel forced. In fact, it was quite a beautiful piece of editing. But what we get in Mad Max 4 is a dreadful first 10 or 15 minutes that cobbles together a means of putting the character at the disposal of Furiosa and Nux later in the movie. For some reason, Max is just standing around in the desert waiting to be chased and caught. He hasn't even got his car camouflaged like he did in Mad Max 2 when he was up on the mountain. What happened to his cunning and intelligence and his ability to plan ahead? And could he not persuade Immortan Joe's clan to put him to better use than being a mere blood bank? After all, he's got lots of skills. Max's opening story is the weakest section of the movie by far, and incidentally, the ending of the movie is fairly weak as well. It's little more than a pale imitation of Mad Max 2's ending, but with more Hollywood pizzazz. So my overall summary of Mad Max 4 Fury Road is that it's got an awful opening and a bog standard ending, but there's a good 90 minutes or so in between that is highly entertaining and quite interesting thematically in places too. It's a very good standalone action movie, but I don't think it's a good sequel because it fails to do anything interesting with Max himself, which is ironic being that the film series is named after his character. It drops the general feeling of harsh realism from the first two movies, and goes all out for comic book spectacle, which it mostly does very well. The society depicted in it seems to be something that might occur many decades or even centuries after what we saw in Mad Max 2, yet we're expected to believe that this complex society and its ingrained religious belief systems have emerged in just a few years since the second movie. But I can forgive it for that because of the imagination that has gone into this alternate world. So overall I'd give Mad Max 4 a 7.5 out of 10 rating. So, what next for Mad Max? Apparently there's a couple more Max scripts already completed, and the fourth instalment pretty much signifies a permanent departure from the realism and natural feel of the first two movies, but that doesn't mean the next Mad Max movie has to be bad. I'm sure plenty of interesting and entertaining stories can be conjured up in this New World society the Fury Road introduces us to. But as I've said in my previous video about my impressions of the Mad Max 4 trailer, personally I think that the best way to take the Max character forward is to pick up from the position he was in at the end of Mad Max 2 and to have the story jump forward a few years and reveal in its opening that Max has succumbed to his desire for human contact. But in doing so, he has joined a gang of savages, moved up their ranks, and essentially become a vicious bad guy henchman, not far removed from the insane Wes character from the second movie. What a shock that would be for the audience to see Max having become a brutal, merciless killer, and to even invite them to speculate that he might have become a rapist and sadist like his comrades, or at least someone who stands by while such acts are committed against the innocent. This evil Max scenario would certainly work thematically because Max was already in danger of becoming a savage.
You're a scavenger, Max. You're a maggot. You know that? You're living off the corpse of the old world. You're out there with the garbage. You're nothing.
For this evil Max, his grief issues would have been taken over by the intense guilt and private self-hatred issues regarding the atrocities that he has since committed. As a result, he's even become a self-harmer, punishing himself for his own sins. This evil Max setup could allow for what would be an incredible story, his gradual return to humanity and a new willingness to connect with others. And naturally this would involve Max having to do lots of battle with the gang of savages that he turns against. If written convincingly, it could be one hell of a movie. That's the Mad Max story that I still want to see. Thanks for watching. You've been listening to Rob Ager. Subscribe and watch my other film analysis videos, and check out the in-depth film analysis articles on my website, creativelearning.com. And if you want to discuss this or any of my other videos, please go to the forum on my website.